Hi, Jenny.
Hi, Lori.
Are you ready for the exciting new Aries new moon?
I I will be by the time it gets here. It's
I
coming
think
right
that,
up. Yeah.
yeah, I think that's about it. Right now, we are making this video a few days before the new moon. And so we are in that dark phase of the moon where it's a little difficult to see where we're going. And coming up upon the Aries new moon is really it's a big change from the dark part of the moon into this awakening of the first sign of the zodiac, the Aries new moon. So the Aries new moon falls on April 11th, and that's coming right up. And when we think about the phases of the moon, they begin with the new moon. So at the new moon, we think of, it's really easy to think of the phases of the moon and correlate them to plant cycles. Do you think of them that way, Jenny?
Yeah, it's a really easy way to
Yeah.
it just comes naturally. So yeah.
Yeah. So what happens at the new moon?
Well, it's when you plant the seed in the soil. So
Okay.
it's the very, very beginning of new life.
Right. It's the very beginning. You plant that seed, and then you look up there in the sky and you don't see anything. And when you plant that seed in the ground, you don't see anything. You just trust that it's going to happen. And over the course of the days following the new moon, you see that little tiny baby crescent moon coming up. And then we reach the first quarter moon, which happens a week after the new moon. And that, I think of that as a time to take action on what you planted at the new moon. And then a week following that, which comes on April 26th.
Yep.
That's the full moon. What's the full moon bring us?
The full moon is like the full illumination of the cycle. It's really the midpoint of the entire cycle where the moon has gotten as bright as it's going to get. And then from there on, it's going to start getting darker. So it really marks that midpoint, and you kind of get to see the full flowering of whatever you started at the new moon.
Right. So you plant a seed, a week later you take action, a week later you see what you grew, and then a week following that comes to the last quarter moon, which is a time when you start releasing the process and preparing for the next new moon. Now, that's the short cycle. That's the 28-day lunar cycle. But we also have bigger cycles that we think about. And when we're looking at the Aries new moon, we can think ahead to the Aries full moon, which comes in 6 months. Do we have a date on that, Jenny?
Yeah, it's going to be on October 20th this year. Yep.
Okay. So really, you can think about these things in various ways, but a seed that you plant at this new moon, you'll see somewhat of an illumination in 2 weeks, and you'll see a bigger picture illumination in 6 months in October. So that's kind of the view of the whole cycle. And with this being an Aries, what do we have to say about Aries? What kind of a seed are you going to plant at an Aries new moon?
Well, Aries is not really about talking. So it's really a call to action. It's a very, it's action, take it now. It's really a time to do that. It's not going to be about sitting and contemplating. It's like, now's the time to get something started. It's also very much that starting energy of like, let's get a new project going. So I like to think of it as a kind of ignition, like when a rocket is taking off, it needs to have this massive amount of fire and fuel and resources and it must all burn at once to get that rocket off the surface of the earth. So it is really helpful to have that image in your mind when you're thinking about Aries energy, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great one, because it really is. It's that something is ignited. You've been contemplating and thinking long enough. It's time to take action. And one of my favorite ways to think about Aries is that there's a requirement of courage with Aries. You have to get behind something and have the courage to light that fuse.
Right.
Nothing's going to ignite that rocket into the air if somebody doesn't light the fuse, so to speak. And when you know what kind of an explosion can come, it might take a lot of courage to actually light that flame, or however you want to look at it.
Yeah.
So,
and, I mean, it's funny talking about it as the new moon cycle being like a seed. Well, the new moon in Aries is this extra emphasis on starting something. So think about a seed in the ground and how much force it takes to crack open the shell and then start fighting its way through the soil in order to reach the top. So it kind of brings the that survivor archetype to Aries. That's part of where it comes from. Is there's just so much effort involved in that, and it's one pointed effort. It's just growing and growing up towards the soil, and that's it. It's not, as you say, contemplating, or it's just doing what it needs to do to survive and to pioneer.
Yeah, and those archetypes of Aries, the pioneer, the what did you say a minute ago?
Well, I mean, the initiator is another thing to think about.
Initiator, the warrior, the leader. This action, and physical action is so important with Aries. It's a very physical kind of action that has to be taken. So with all of that, let's think about what house in your chart that Aries new moon is going to fall. If you want to look at your rising sign, if you know your rising sign. If you don't know your rising sign, it will work somewhat differently, but it will work using your sun sign. But if you have an Aries rising, you want to realize that this new moon is happening in your first house, which is the most personal house. It's all about you. So it really is, this suggests that you're planting a seed for the growth and development of your own courage of showing up in the world as who you most naturally are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's the seed that you're going to plant if you have Aries rising. Mm-hmm. And if you have Aries rising, it's that courage of personality that you show up with every day anyway. Mm-hmm. So what about if you have Taurus rising?
Taurus rising puts that Aries new moon actually in your 12th house. So now we're thinking about things that are behind the scenes. So it's really having courage to face things behind the scenes, which could be things like, it might be a really difficult time in your life. You're dealing with suffering. That's another designation of that area of life. It's a time to really possibly bring in like a meditation practice. This is in the 12th house. So that really is that. It's a hard house to describe because it refers to the collective and things larger than yourself, and also to suffering and the development of compassion. All those things need warrior energy. So yeah, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think that's good. I think that's good. So then if you have, let's just keep going through them. If you have Gemini rising, then this Aries new moon is going to fall in your 11th house. And this means that you want to really think about the seed of courage, the seed of pioneering energy that you want to plant in the area of your life that relates to community or support. So yeah, it would be a good time to take action on going out and finding a community for yourself, or going out and creating a community for yourself, finding people, like-minded people to gather with you, to support you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And what about if you have Cancer rising?
Well, Cancer rising, that's going to put Aries in your 10th house of career and vocation. So it's a time to make a big push in your vocation. It's a time to really stand up tall and put your best foot forwards and move forwards, and just do it.
Yeah, in your career. Okay. So then if we have, let's see, where are we at now? We're at Leo rising. If you have Leo rising, then this Aries new moon is falling in your 9th house. And you want to plant a seed for the growth of your own personal understanding of the world, your perspective, your worldview, your, understanding in a bigger picture way. You might want to, take action by applying to take a class or something along those lines. Sign up for a class that's going to expand your understanding of the world. So that's Leo rising. And what about Virgo?
Virgo rising puts it in your 8th house. So this is the area where you have to deal with other people's stuff, other people's baggage. This might be a time when you're thinking about you need to negotiate a contract or something like that. It can be, because that's kind of associated with like one of our rituals we have in our capitalist society, signing a contract to start a new business. So that's that kind of thing. I also think it's a time when, I don't know, I guess it could be kind of combative. You might feel combative with other people's because you're bumping into their stuff. So it's just a good time to be aware of that and just notice that.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like planting a seed for understanding other people's junk too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or tolerating it.
Or tolerating it, right. Okay, so then if you have Libra rising, that means that this Aries new moon is falling in your 7th house. And this suggests that it's time to plant a seed, to take some direct action around the growth of either your intimate partnerships or public relationships. So, make plans for a getaway with your partner or something along those lines, really taking action on growth, being really courageous in asking for what you want in a relationship would be a good use of this as well. Mm-hmm. And what about Scorpio rising?
Scorpio rising, now we're focusing on the 6th house. The 6th house deals with things like competence and training, but also your health. So you want to think about getting serious about, like self-care basically. So this is a time to schedule that appointment with the massage therapist or schedule the appointment with the person at the gym, who's going to help you create a really good program because you've got to take care of your health. That kind of thing, or also to be of service. If you've been wanting to help out at the local food shelf, this is a good time to do that. Yeah, with Scorpio rising. So, yep.
Very good. Okay, and if you've got Sagittarius rising, this new moon is falling in your 5th house, and you're gonna want to plant a seed for some sort of a creative project. Unless you're wanting to get pregnant, then plant that seed. The 5th house is about creativity and, where we give love. Children are part of that 5th house picture. So, you want to plant a seed that somehow has something to do with your children, new love in your life, or creativity. Like so go ahead and, order supplies you need for a creative project.
That sounds great.
And what if you've got Capricorn rising?
The Capricorn rising puts that squarely in your 4th house of home and house. So this is time to be the warrior in the area of your family, or maybe it's time to go ahead and do that renovation project you've been wanting to do, like make the first phone call to the first contractor on your list. It's really is taking that very first step in something like that.
That's great. Okay. So if you've got Aquarius rising, this is falling in your 3rd house. So you want to plant a seed to grow more courage in your communication, more determination in how you use your voice. You might want to plant a seed by setting up a time and date to have a conversation that you've been meaning to have. That would be a good use for that. Aries new moon in the 3rd house. And what about if you've got Pisces rising, Jenny?
So Pisces rising brings us to the 2nd house. I always like to think about the 2nd house as self-worth. So how you value yourself. That's kind of the underlying principle, but also can pertain to money, financial things. It might be time to start a new savings account or think about where you want to put that stimulus check. If you're fortunate person, you might want to think about giving that somewhere else. But it's a good time to let it pertain to all things to do with value.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
If it was back in the old days, I'd say balance your checkbook, but I don't know if people do that anymore. All right, so that covers all the rising signs with this. And, you know, remember, whatever rising sign you have and the house that we talked about as being highlighted by this Aries moon, you know, that is an area in your life that is always a place that you need to apply courage and determination, because that's the house in your chart that holds Aries. So that's a very activated area of your life.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think that sometimes that's when the archetypes can be really helpful, is understanding what archetype is in what area of life for you. Because as Lori says, it's something you're always working with. So it is, I find that very helpful. So
For sure. All right, do you have the chart of the new moon?
Yes.
Let's take a look at that and see. Wow, look at all that Aries. Boy, we are in Aries season, as they say, aren't we?
Yes. And that's something I want to mention right off the bat, is just that we're not just talking about the sun and the moon falling in whatever house we just mentioned. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on in everybody's house that holds Aries. So we have quite the stellium here with personal planets. And the sun and the moon are actually right between Mercury and Venus. But I think they can all be considered a cluster together or stellium.
Yeah. Whatever house that new moon is in, you've got a lot of energy going on right there, right now. And take advantage of it. Use it in some strong, powerful, assertive way. Really, yeah, it's sort of like bursting through a door with this Aries moon. After being in the dark of the moon, it's like, here we are.
Yeah.
That's interesting. It's a nice little gathering too, because it's the sun, the moon, the Venus and Mercury. So your values, your thinking are all clustered together there. Now, what else do they do? Let's look at this.
One really nice thing about this chart is there's nice aspects to both Mars and Jupiter in this chart. So that cluster, especially Sun, Moon, is a sextile to Jupiter and a sextile to Mars. So the sextile is this aspect of opportunity. There's some pretty nice flow to that. Definitely means you need to take action on it, but at least it's a nice flowing action. It isn't like it's not so much that a demand is being made of you. It's more like, hey, take advantage. In fact, what Lori just said. And there's a little mini triangle there because that means that Mars and Jupiter also trine each other. So that's in air signs. So
that's really, I love this chart this month. I really like it. I mean, first of all, you look at this, and this is from the eastern side of the country here. But we've got Scorpio rising at the moment of the new moon, which is ruled by Mars. Aries is ruled by Mars. So we've got a really activated Mars taking action, which is what Aries is all about. So this just like pumps it up. I think of the bellows on the fire, you know, pouring air into the fire to make it burn brighter, but not in a negative way, because this is a beautiful little triangle here. The expansion and enlarging the voice of all of those planets.
Yeah, and then you can think about, so Jupiter's in Aquarius, so that brings in that innovative, just kind of a little bit of genius going energy with the Gemini, Mars being in Gemini. So that's speaking about it. So it's communicating humanitarian ideas would be one key phrase you could use. But certainly there is an emphasis on the action that you're being asked to take in this chart is definitely about communication.
Yeah.
It's definitely requiring some sort of creative release through communication.
Yeah. Having the courage.
So Yes, which is a hard thing to do in, this day and age. And there's a lot of controversy that everyone likes to bring in, and a lot of to which side of the coin they fall on. Which I think there is one tricky aspect in this chart, isn't there, Lori?
Yeah, there is one tricky piece here. And that is the Pluto squares all those planets.
Yeah. And Pluto's in a very tight square with Venus. So sometimes like in a natal chart, you might look at that and wonder about things like obsession, just real intensity going on there. So that's something to think about. And in this chart, it is an interesting thing what it suggests, because Venus in Aries is already not in the happiest sign. It's like I don't know, it's like art through bloodshed, or something like that. I mean, there's something real intense. I'm thinking about like martial arts is kind of a Venus and Aries way to summarize that. But anyway, squaring Pluto, it really brings a lot of intensity to the whole thing.
Yeah, it certainly does. It certainly does. It's like something needs to be said, and the push to speak, and yet you're going to get some kickback.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be some kickback to that. And the thing with a square aspect, people get nervous about square aspects because they're hard, or however you want to look at it. But without squares, we don't get much done in life. And this is about having the courage to say what needs to be said, even if you are going to get pushback.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's just part of it right now. We have to be true to ourselves and our own beliefs and our own understanding of the world, and manage ourselves in the face of the kickback we might get.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, because one of the things I feel like Pluto and Capricorn has been saying to us for a long time is it's saying that there needs to be some sort of change to the power structure that exists. And basically, in a broad sense, we're just not in alignment with the other systems on the planet, basically. Right. So I think that's what that Pluto is trying to get us to look at, is what needs to be changed about our society. And then in this one new moon chart, is just really bringing that into full focus as the one thing that is bringing about growth in this chart.
Right. It's fascinating. It's an interesting chart. I like it. And I kind of like that the Pluto is in there because it gives us something to grapple with. It's not all pretty. And Aries doesn't want it all to be pretty. Aries wants to grapple with something.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And it brings in the empowerment. I mean, it really makes it for empowerment. So.
Yeah. So anything else about that?
Yeah, I don't think so.
Okay, so what house does the Aries new moon fall in for you?
It falls in my 10th house. So career, and it's time to make a bold move in terms of my career. So
awesome. Awesome.
What about you?
For me, it falls in the 8th house. So I haven't thought about it yet. I will have to give that some thought. What I want to think about with the 8th house is something around boundaries or ritual around
I like that.
other people in my life. Well, maybe I'll get married. I have no idea. I'll give some thought to that.
Yeah.
All right. I think I've said everything I want to say. You got anything else, Jenny?
No, I think that's it. This is an action moon. So go out and make a decision about what you want to do, and then take action on it this weekend.
Take action. Absolutely. Okay. Well, thank you, Jenny. And we will talk at the next full moon. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.